For the past 2 months, I've been writing a book, and I'm going to show you how I'm doing it. In this video, I'm going to talk about step 1 of my writing process, which is the mind map. In my last video, I talked about my desire to write the book, kind of who inspired me to write, kind of who's been along with me on this journey, and how I finally got started. So, got started a couple months ago. I want to talk through the first step in my writing process, which was my mind map. So, why do a mind map? Why start with that? So previously, I had started my book by literally, I just wrote out, when I say an outline, I mean wrote out 10 topic ideas and then immediately started writing my rough draft. And I got stuck. I didn't know where to go. I got about a chapter and a half in and I put it to the side and deprioritized it because it was difficult and I found a really hard time writing. I got a lot of writer's block whenever I did that. So after I read published and got this new process of here's how I can write a book, the first step was a mind map. So why a mind map? Well, like when you were in school back in the day, a mind map, when you have your big circle and you branch off and have another little circle and you branch off and have another little circle and that branches off to this circle. It's a really easy way to get your thoughts out and fleshed out. And that's why you learned it in school growing up. That's why it still works right now for writers. It's a really great way to get your thoughts out on paper. So the goal was to get all my thoughts out and worry about organizing them later. But again, the first step is just I need all the thoughts I have about this book out of my brain, out on paper, on computer, on a whiteboard, whatever it is. I need it out so I can see it and review it and organize it later. I need them out before I map it. So typically, this is something that I would have done digitally. There's software like Miro, Apple has Freeform, but for some reason this time I just really felt like using paper and pen. And so what I did was I got a pack of multicolored sticky notes and I just started using these to somehow keep them organized, with again the goal being get all my thoughts out and really worry about structure later on. So as I wrote down ideas, I wrote them down with a pen and sticky notes and I started placing them on my whiteboard. So the first thing that I did was I focused on the why. Why am I writing the book? This is important because the why would be the motivation to finish. The why would be the motivation to write and to keep going, to set deadlines, to add structure, to set time aside to write every day. Without a good why for writing the book, the odds of me finishing it would never be very high. So I wrote down my whys on these pink sticky notes. And some of my whys were, this was a lifelong dream of mine. I want to have an impact on the next generation. And so those are the first two whys. It morphed into some more, which I'm going to share later, that became my main drivers. But getting my whys out really helped me frame, okay, why do I need to write this book? Why do I need to finish it? Why do I need to prioritize my writing? And so I wrote down my why on the pink sticky notes and I put them on the whiteboard. The next area was my audience. Again, before getting topic ideas, it's important to know who I'm writing to. And so even before a main idea, it's important to know who am I writing this book for, identify who my audience is, what they want, and then what problem they have that gets into the way of what they want. For the book to connect and make a large impact, I need to solve a problem for my reader. And so I focused on audience, which I actually ended up having two. So because my book is focused towards 15 to 22 year olds, and if we want to get really specific, 16 to 19 year olds, I wrote this book for young people who are about to work or are working their first job. I then focus on what they wanted and what problems are getting in their way. So that's who the book is for. That's my audience. I wrote that down. I wrote some adjectives to describe my audience. But then I realized I actually have a second audience here. How many high schoolers are going out and buying a book for themselves, or even early college? I don't think it's very high. And in most cases, I think the buyer of my book, which is my second audience, is going to be a parent, a person of influence, a leader, a business owner who is buying this book to give to their child, person they love, employee. And I want to make sure that as I'm writing marketing around the book, including like the cover design, the title, the subtitle, the description of the book, that it was really clear what problems I'm solving for the reader so that the buyer sees it as valuable to give to someone else to read. And so again, interesting complication with my writing was two audiences. My buyer, in a lot of cases, is going to be different than my reader. And so how do I make sure that my book serves both and serve both audiences well? So I wrote all of my thoughts about my audience on green sticky notes, and I placed those on the board. Next, let's get to the main idea. So going back to audience, what do they want? What problem are they facing? Now comes the main idea for the book. So in my main idea, which I wrote out on these orange sticky notes, I really focused on okay, how am I solving the problem? That's the main idea for the book. So my first subtitle idea was word for word written on one of these orange sticky notes. And so long as my main idea was helping my audience solve a problem that they had, I can connect deeply with the reader, and this book can actually have an impact instead of just being another book that you pick up and put back on the shelf and say, that was kind of nice. So I've got my why on the board, my audience, my main idea. Now it's time to get every thought I've had about this book out onto a sticky note, get it on the board. So first was just like main ideas. So what are some main teachings or lessons that I want in this book? So I wrote out initially what was, I think, 16 main ideas and wrote them on these light blue sticky notes and put them on the board, again, with the goal being, let me get all of these out. I'm going to worry about what's actually relevant and get them organized later. So got my main ideas on the board. I felt like that was decently easy because, again, I've kind of had thoughts about this book for a couple of years now. Then I need supplemental material for each of those main ideas. So I took time to look at each of the main ideas and say, okay, for my reader to do this well, what's an easy 3-step process they can take in order to do this well? So I wrote those 3-step processes on purple sticky notes. And then I put that next to the light blue one on the board to say, okay, for you to do this lesson, here's an easy 3-step process of what you can do to accomplish what I'm asking you to do. So here's an example of what that might look like. And this may or may not be in the book. If my main idea for a chapter or a topic is that my reader should take advantage of unexpected opportunities, the 3 steps might be, number 1, you should expect the unexpected. Number 2, you should weigh out the potential outcomes when going into a situation like that. And number 3, you should seek others for wisdom. Seek others who care about you, who have influence over you, who are older and wiser than you, for wisdom. So that would be an example that may or may not be in the book. And then I wrote out the supplemental teaching on purple sticky notes, added them to the board. Next was the fun part, which is stories. So for each piece of content, I thought about my journey working at Chick-fil-A for the last decade. What stories do I have from my life that I could use to illustrate the point that I was trying to make? And for almost every single point, I had multiple yellow sticky notes that I wrote these on. I had multiple stories that went along with the point I was trying to make. And that was a fun exercise to reflect on my journey. I pulled out some old journals that I had from, years ago. Again, I worked there over a decade, and I wrote out these stories in the yellow sticky notes, put them on the board. So then I had my mind map, which you can see now all over the board, and more organized than I thought it was going to be honest with you, but still, it was all my thoughts. This needed to be more organized, trimmed. I couldn't really have 16 main ideas or main topics in a book, and 16 chapters seemed like a lot for a point I was trying to make, but the next step was actually refining this even before an outline. So in the next video, I'm actually going to talk about how I refined my mind map. Before I could get to an outline, I needed to make the first cuts to the book. What topics are actually helping my audience based on what they want, what problems they're having, based on how I solved that problem, which of the topics I had written down actually supported that, and which ones didn't really support it, which topics didn't solve the main problem I was trying to solve. And maybe those topics get saved for a second book. So again, if you'd like to stay updated with this journey of me becoming an author and get updates about my book, which will be coming out this year in 2024, be sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel. There's also a form that you can fill out and a link in the episode description where I'll be sending out email updates every week or two. You'll also get information on how you can be a part of the launch team. I'll also be sending out this week the official title of the book to that email chain. So if you'd like to get some insider access, even more than you're seeing on this video, about the book and get some insider info like the title, I'll be sending that out this week. So be sure to click that link below to get email updates about the book. Again, I cannot wait to get my book into your hands. And in the next video, I'll talk about how I refined my mind map down so that I could get that mind map into an outline. Take care.